Turning next to ALK, which is the condition that I have. So what do the maps look like for ALK? How are they? How similar or different are they to the EGFR ones? So there we go. So with ALK, we don't have quite as big a population. It's roughly about a third of the size of the EGFR population. I know from the theory that's what it was, and it seems to be borne out with these numbers as well. That's about two and a half or a third of the size of EGFR numbers. We do have this, so we have a repeat of what we saw with EGFR, where there is consistently greater prevalence per capita in the broad southeast compared to the north. So the higher pollution areas have more people taking ALK TKIs. So throughout all of the years, it starts off, it doesn't quite reach statistical significance there. P is 0.15, but it does the following year in 2020, and it gets even smaller in 2021, even smaller still in 2022 as the population size is growing, and stays there the same, very small, highly statistically significant in 2023. Looking at one thing where it differs a lot to the EGFR pattern is the highest region seems to consistently be the southwest of England for reasons that I don't understand. I've got to say this is consistent with what I anecdotally see as well. So when you get the regional meetups for the different areas of London, areas of the country, I organised the London one, and we got a population of 9 million there. So the Christmas one for London I organised, but they had the same number of people in the southwest, which has a population of about 7 million. Now whether that's not real science, but it's just an anecdote. And then the other regions all had lower numbers, but this interesting, that seems to be consistent with what I see in the real world. What causes that? I don't know. I have had it. I mean, that is a known region of high radon. So if you look at radon England, radon maps of England, that news continue anyway. I don't know, it's not letting me in. So UK radon map, see whether I can get in there. So the southwest, I can't readily see the map now, but when you do, I'll show radon data, there we are. Southwest England is consistently the highest for radon. Wales very high as well, central belt in the Midlands, and a fair bit in the north. Now I've only got England data, but obviously you get a fair bit in the southwest and the north. Now I'm not sure that's really showing up on this. You're seeing consistent patterns across multiple counties in the southwest, a bit in the north. All I can say is that anecdotally, there don't seem to be many cases. I don't have a map of the way. I don't have the secondary care medicines data for Wales, unfortunately. But I'll say anecdotally, there don't seem to be many cases in Wales. So that suggests that radon probably isn't the whatever's causing that. So I don't know. I can also say anecdotally, I got a number from, I did see on one of the sites someone put some numbers for Finland on there, and they were pretty high. probably comparable to the southwest of England, and that it has very high radon there. So I don't know. I can have an argument for and against really with that. So I suspect there's some other. I don't know what's causing it at the end of the day. Now I can break these down further as well. So what I've found, if you look at just alectinib on its own, I'll just copy that out there. First of all, I'll come back to that later. All right, so I'll put 9999 here. So as I mentioned, in the method I explained the methodology behind the tablets. These are just what I think are at the top are the frequencies of the tablets per day, and then below what I suspect an average population would take. All of them are the same as this top white row with the exception of alectinib. Well, assume because the standard dose is 8 tablets per day. Some people will take 6 tablets per day and a few will take 4 tablets per day. So I just assume that across a big population they're taking 7 on average per day. Now I obviously don't know for certain, but that's just my assumption. So looking at alectinib on its own, we have, it's actually not surprising because alectinib is the most commonly prescribed tablet. So there's exactly the same patterns for alectinib on its own. Same pattern with higher prevalence in the broad southeast compared to the north, higher prevalence in the southwest compared to the northeast and Yorkshire, which are both of those are low pollution areas. So what's causing it in the southwest, don't know. And then doing the same with just lorlatinib on its own. So I'll put those in and then screen that out, screen alectinib out. Again, similar patterns. There's not as many patients on lorlatinib as there are on alectinib, so the p-values sometimes struggle. We just about get statistical significance there. We don't get it with southwest versus northeast. We do get it there. We do get it there. Again, it doesn't quite reach it in the. There's just not quite enough patients to do that to get statistical significance in the southwest. So going through it again, it's a very consistent pattern. What I also found interesting was when I play off one against the other, because with the ALK drugs, when the modern day era, you get when you get diagnosed, you either go on to alectinib or brigatinib. That's been the case for alectinib's been around since the drug of choice since 2018. Before that it was ceritinib, and then before that it was crizotinib, which I've not had on here. Crizotinib now I treat as a ROS1 drug. There will be some ALK patients still on crizotinib, but not very many, so it's going to be a trivial number. And unfortunately I don't know when it. All I can assume is that everybody on crizotinib is taking it for ROS1, even though I know that they aren't, but I've just had to use that simplification because I can't tell what condition people are taking it for. What was I saying? With ceritinib became the drug of choice for a while, and then it was quickly surpassed by alectinib in August 2018, and then for a long time that was really the only drug. But lorlatinib was approved in May 2020 as a second line after alectinib, and also actually there was brigatinib also came along a bit later, as a second line. Actually came along as a second line drug before lorlatinib. But only after crizotinib. So you basically for recent years, you start off on alectinib or brigatinib, and then you move on to lorlatinib afterwards. Suritinib's an old drug which isn't really used much now. So playing these off against another, because lorlatinib is a second line drug and alectinib is a first line, if you compare the two, this is two different distinct populations, because people on lorlatinib will never then go on to alectinib. It just doesn't happen that way around. It happens the other way, but not that way. So looking at these earlier years, we have that greater prevalence in the southwest, greater prevalence in the southeast, greater prevalence in the southwest there compared to the northeast. The same pattern there the year after in 2020 with this old population. These people on lorlatinib probably started off on either suritinib, or probably more likely they had crizotinib at some point. So they some of them might have just also gone on to alectinib and then onto lorlatinib quickly. But we've got two distinct populations here, but we're seeing the same sort of pattern for those two distinct populations. So it's not just the same people then living a long time, and when you look at the whole population together, you wonder how, is it just a lot of people staying on the starting off on one drug and then going on to the other and then retaining the same population. Here it isn't. It's two distinct populations of people, but the patterns are still the same. So going now, I'll look at brigatinib on its own. Brigatinib, the drug I'm on, I'm surprised it's not used actually more than it is, but alectinib seems to still be is the most common first line drug. Now we seem to have a very different pattern. The numbers are a lot lower for brigatinib here, but we seem to switch between the two. There's not a great deal of difference between the two north and the north and broad southeast region. Sometimes the north's more prevalent, sometimes the southeast. Because they're so close to each other, there's no statistical significance. I'm guessing that's just because most oncologists just choose to prefer alectinib, and a few, for whatever reason, prefer brigatinib, and there's no particular rhyme or reason which of the two they use. So I'm guessing that's the reason there. Although we are still, consistently seeing greater prevalence in southwest England compared to the northeast, but it's not reaching statistical significance, so it's pretty close there. And then there's not many suritinib patients, but I'll just have a look at those quickly. So right, here we've only really into a few dozen cases. We started off with 63 and then went down to 22 by 2023. I know I think one or two people on it personally. They tend to have been on it for a long time, and if it's working, why change it really? So we do have this consistent pattern early on again, where even in this relatively small population, it's showing greater prevalence in the broad southeast compared to the north, and the southwest compared to the northeast. Again in 2020, again in 2022. The numbers aren't big enough for statistical significance, but and then in 2022 it seems to flip there, but the numbers are tiny by this time. It's just a couple of dozen really, so I don't think you can really read too much into that on its own. So I think I'll end it there.